So, pretty interesting, thought-provoking article by Nathan J. Robinson in Current Affairs. I believe he's also the founder of that magazine. I'm not sure how often it comes out. I've read some of the articles. I've never actually got a physical copy. I would like to, just because there's just some really good content and some really good writers that write for Current Affairs, and they're just on point with their political analysis. And Nathan J. Robinson just elucidates and enlightens us with his perspective on Elizabeth Warren. Please don't vote for Elizabeth Warren in Iowa. If you want Joe Biden to get the Democratic presidential nomination, we need to do everything possible to make sure people do not vote for Elizabeth Warren in Iowa. As of this writing, the Iowa caucuses are 48 hours away. By failing to unify behind Sanders, the progressive left is walking into a buzzsaw that will destroy us. To see why, have a look at where things stand right now in the Iowa polls as tracked by 538. I just saw an Emerson poll, though, that showed Bernie was up by 7, but the point stands nonetheless. Sanders is leading by a hair, though they're pretty much completely even. Warren is in 4th place, as she is in New Hampshire, a position reflected in her poor fundraising. Warren is not going to win, but her candidacy can still destroy Bernie. In fact, that's all it can do. Notice from the current polls that even if a small shift of Warren voters to Sanders would be extremely helpful in opening up a solid lead over Biden. If there's not a progressive victory in Iowa, it would be because there were still people voting for Warren. But the things are actually far more perilous than that because of the weird structure of the Iowa caucuses. There are 2 rounds, and if a candidate doesn't get 15% in the first, their voters can switch to a second candidate. Let's consider a precinct in which the first vote broke down exactly according to the current 538 polling. This is an individual precinct, not the ultimate statewide result. Warren would only get 14.4%. Since Sanders is the most common second choice of Warren voters, he would pick up her votes in round 2. For the purposes of explanation, let's assume he got all her votes. Buttigieg, however, would keep his 15.5% for the second round. The situation is good for Bernie. The centrist vote is split between Buttigieg and Biden, while he gets the progressive vote. But what if there's just a slight difference? Buttigieg drops a point and Warren goes up a point. That's a calamity. In the second round, Warren keeps her voters. Buttigieg voters are released and mostly go to Biden. Biden also gets Klobuchar's voters. So Biden resoundingly crushes Bernie in the precinct. Because the progressive vote was split, but the centrist vote ended up united. Thus, every precinct where Warren cracks 15% is horrible news for Bernie. If you vote for Warren, you are voting for Biden, period. If you're wearing a Warren shirt, look closely at it. It really says Biden. Every time a progressive votes for Warren, Joe Biden smiles widens another inch. And this is a creepy picture. Crazy Uncle Joseph. Creepy Uncle Joseph. Note, another thing. We actually don't want to see precincts where Buttigieg drops below 50%. Many of us on the left have attacked him, but at this particular moment, he happens to be useful to us. We do not want his supporters to fall further than it already has, or do not want his support to fall further than it already has. So be nice to Mayor Pete supporters. Give them a lift to the polls. Do the dance with them. Right now, he's siphoning Biden votes. Leave him be. This needs to be made clear to every person considering supporting Warren. If their second choice is Sanders, they need to vote for Sanders. Worryingly, even Sanders supporters seem to think it's fine for Warren to take away any potential votes and cause them to lose. Dave Weigel recently asked what Sanders voters' preferred order of results was. A disturbing number of Sanders people want Warren to do well. Question for followers. Who supports Sanders? Which of these Iowa scoreboards make you the most optimistic about winning after Iowa? A, Sanders first, Biden second, Buttigieg third. Option B, Sanders first, Buttigieg second, Biden third. C, Sanders first, Warren second, Biden third. D, Sanders first, Biden second, Warren third. Out of that, I would say you would probably want Bernie first, Buttigieg second, Biden third. I think option B would be the most politically advantageous for Bernie Sanders. Because let's say if Buttigieg and Biden were even and, Bernie's able to win by 10 or 15 percentage points, something like that, that could be super beneficial. And Elizabeth Warren being in fourth because all of her support went to Bernie Sanders, something like that. All the progressive vote went to Bernie Sanders. I think that would be the best option in my opinion. What would you say? Yes. See? That's what I said. Sanders, Buttigieg. That's what most people thought. And then Sanders, Warren, Biden. So yeah, that's what Nathan J. Robinson was in reference to, that almost 35% that want Elizabeth Warren to do well. And if she does well, it means a lot of the potential progressive vote, or people who claim to be progressive or hold those values, went to Warren over Sanders when he is the only shot of electing a progressive president in the United States. Elizabeth Warren does not have the support. She does not have the fundraising. She does not have the grassroots movement. And she does not have that decades-long commitment to progressive left populist values like Bernie Sanders. And that's just a fact. I mean, you can't argue that if you're being truthful there. The correct answer, if you actually want Bernie Sanders to be the nominee, is B. Those who choose C are not thinking about how boosting Elizabeth Warren is actually going to play out. Her candidacy is destroying Bernie Sanders' chance of finishing up Biden. It could wreck Sanders completely. She needs to come in fourth place in Iowa, get under 15% of the vote, then drop out. Anything else will make things much, much harder. Some people think that it doesn't matter how the vote is apportioned between Sanders and Warren as long as together they do well. This is delusional. If Joe Biden comes out of Iowa ahead, he gains potentially unstoppable momentum. What's momentum? Momentum means the news media stops running the stories about how Bernie might win and starts talking about Joe's reclaiming of the frontrunner status. Biden defies expectations, rebounds to resoundingly defeats Sanders as the headline. People start endorsing him who had hesitated, waiting to see if he turned out a dud, probably including more labor unions as well as law firms helping companies destroy their unions who's actually realize which side Biden is on. One sec. Now you might think, okay, so Joe technically won all the primaries as Elizabeth Warren hangs on and splits the progressive vote, but Warren and Sanders together will have more delegates. As I've noted before, there is absolutely no reason to think Warren would support Sanders over Biden. And there is considerable reason to believe that she would in fact end up with Biden. She didn't endorse Sanders in 2016. She tried to torpedo his campaign this time with a damaging and implausible allegation. She's held back on going after Biden too hard. If Joe is a clear frontrunner and politics are halfway between Bernie and Biden, why would she not go with Biden? Certainly she can extract a lot of concessions from Biden, possibly the VP slot, and she'll be under immense pressure from prominent members of the party, possibly including Barack Obama, not to go with Bernie. That's definitely true. I couldn't see the Democratic establishment encouraging. They obviously would want her to back Biden 100%. Well, they wanted her to do that yesterday if she had dropped out then. So if Joe wins, it's not bad for Bernie. And the number one thing keeps Bernie from pulling way ahead is that Elizabeth Warren is continuing to peel off people who would otherwise support him. This makes it extremely frustrating that progressive magazines like In These Times and The Nation have promoted the idea that we can support both and just divide our votes. In fact, doing that will kill the chances of a progressive presidency, and that's super important because the United States desperately needs a progressive in the executive branch, somebody that's going to use the bully pulpit, somebody who said that he will literally travel around the United States and actively campaign against people in the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party as well, who are, fighting against his progressive left agenda, things like Medicare for all, free college, higher tax rates on Wall Street, all of these, progressive ideas. People like Joe Manchin wouldn't support that. He would go to West Virginia and campaign against Joe Manchin and either make him toe the line or fight to get him out of office and fight to elect somebody that's going to fight for those really much needed things, so we don't have 30 to 45,000 people in the United States dying each year because they don't have health insurance. 500 plus thousand people each year going bankrupt because of these crazy, insane medical bills resulting of our for-profit, rapacious healthcare system. We cannot afford Joe Biden. He's truly terrible, and all a Warren vote can do at this point is have the same effect as a Florida Nader vote in 2000. The progressive primary has been run, and she lost. We gave her a chance. Sanders campaign has more support, more money, more organizing capacity, more enthusiasm. Things had come out the other way. This conversation might be different. And I'm not critiquing Warren on her political merits, even though I've done so before. But now that voting is about to start, we can no longer consider splitting. We have to rally behind Sanders. If you are a Warren supporter, the question you need to ask is the difference between Warren and Sanders so great in Warren's favor that it's worth throwing away our shot at a robust progressive agenda on climate change, on health care. If Warren's doomed candidacy takes Sanders down with it, how will you feel? How will history look back at this election? It would be very clear that we bungled it. We blew our one shot. We have a very short amount of time. So this last Des Moines Register CNN poll that was supposed to come out, I think, yesterday, they decided not to do that, I guess, after basically a Pete Buttigieg supporter was called by this, for this poll, and Pete Buttigieg's name, I guess, was left off of the list of candidates because something about like the font on the paper had changed, made it the other candidate's names bigger, and it ended up taking Buttigieg's name off the page. So after that happened, the poll was canceled, and there's been kind of some speculation by different candidates, including Andrew Yang, who say that maybe there was kind of some shady business going on that led the, this poll to be withheld from the public, basically because it showed Andrew Yang thought it, maybe showed him doing really well. Also heard other people on the kind of Bernie Sanders, who are Bernie Sanders supporters, say the same thing, that, the poll maybe showed Bernie Sanders doing really well, and they didn't want that to get out there. And then, so this is a campaign, I think it's one of the, campaign spokesperson for Buttigieg, Liz Smith. Since people are asking, our campaign received a report from a recipient of the Iowa poll call, raising concerns that not every candidate was named by the interviewer and asked who they support. And then obviously the last poll that came out showed Bernie ahead the first time, and I wouldn't be surprised if this poll had came out that it showed Bernie with even a bigger lead. And then, so this is what Yang said. There are a lot of rumors flying around, and one of the rumors is that we did really well in it, which, could be true. And so it's kind of interesting that just the timing of this, it seems kind of suspect. I guess possibly their explanation that they gave is true, that Buttigieg's name was omitted from it due to that type being too big and basically just forced his name off the page, so people weren't given the opportunity to say that they supported Buttigieg. But I could also see, maybe the Buttigieg campaign also had forewarning about how bad the numbers are, and they concocted this story. I think that's within the realm of possibility, but so I guess we'll never know what those polls said, but if I had to guess, I think they would show Bernie Sanders even doing better than the poll from January. But so just the timing of it's kind of interesting, but also a little bit, questionable. Just a couple of days before the Iowa caucus, they decide that they're not going to release this last poll. So what do you think? Do you think that this is the reason why it wasn't released is accurate, that Buttigieg's name was left off, or do you think there's something more, a more nefarious explanation that that explains why this happened? I could see it going either way, and I don't necessarily trust Buttigieg or his campaign to be overtly truthful with the media or with the public, so I could see it going either way. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comment sections down below. Peace.